Hey guys, in this video we will be using Pandas to generate some simple summary statistics using the movies on Netflix, Prime Video, Hulu, and Disney dataset. So the first thing we would like to do is import the Pandas library. And Pandas is a library in Python that's used for generating simple statistics, analyzing data, wrangling data, things of that nature. So we'll import Pandas as PD. And the next thing we'd like to do is set the display options for displaying the columns and rows to none. So the way we do that is using pd.setOption. And we do display.maxColumns none. And then we do set option max rows none. So max rows none. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is read our data into a Pandas data frame, and we'll call our data frame df. So we'll do df equals pd dot read CSV, and this is the Pandas method we use to read in CSV files, and the name of our file, which is movies on streaming platforms updated. Okay, so the first thing we can do is display the first 5 rows of data, and we do this using the head method in Pandas. So we can do this using print df.head. And now let's run our script. Okay, so we can see the first 5 rows of data in our data set. We have this unnamed index column, which we can delete using the del keyword. So let's do del df unnamed 0. And now that should be removed from our data. Okay, so now we no longer have this unnamed column in our data frame. Okay, so the first thing we can do is display the list of columns that are in our data, and the way we do that is with the .columns attribute. So we do print df.columns, and we don't need to rerun our entire script. The Spider IDE, which is the IDE that we're using in this tutorial, allows you to run single lines of code. So here we could just run the print df.columns line of code, and we get an index object displaying the column names in our data set. And we can also convert this to a list using the list method. Perfect. So the next thing we can do is look at some simple statistics for some of the numerical columns in our data. So we have IMDb rating, which is a floating point value. So we can display the average value of the IMDb rating using the mean method for Pandas data frames. So we can do print df IMDb dot mean, and we can run this line of code to get our display message. So we see mean of IMDb 5.9. We can also print out the standard deviation using the std method, and we can say standard deviation of IMDb, and let's run these 2 lines of code, and we see the standard deviation is 1.34. Next thing we can do is try to bake this into a function that we can use for any numerical column. So let's define a function called getStatistics, and it's going to take a numerical column. And we can use f strings to customize our display messages. So the way we do that is with f strings. We use this f before the opening quotation of our string, and we pass in our parameter in these curly braces. So now we have our getStatistics method defined. We can call this with IMDb. And we can also call it with another numerical column. Let's call it with runtime. Now let's run the selection of code. And we see we get the mean and standard deviation for IMDb, mean and standard deviation for runtime. I'll stop here, but I encourage you to play around with the code and data yourself. The link to the data is provided in the description below, as well as the link to the GitHub repo with the code that we used in this video. Thank you for watching.